We are recording, we record and archive all of our webinars, and they are posted on the WICA website. So if you missed something today, you can always go back and view it again, or other people can view it as well. You do only get registry credit for participating in this live webinar, though. And we do have a question if people can watch together on the phone. And so the answer is yes. If you are participating in a group, that's fine, but you will each need to complete a training evaluation at the end. So it should be set that it can take multiple evaluations from one computer. And if I didn't set that right, I'll fix it. All right, so this is environments for school-age programs. Our presenters today are Tiffany Swain and Rachel Jonas-Serta.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. This is Tiffany.
Hi, this is Rachel.
I have some questions to ask of you just so that Tiffany and Rachel have a better idea of who is out there. And so I'm going to launch what's called a poll. The first one is asking about your program's STAR level. We do realize that some people aren't participating in Youngstar, or there's agency staff on the line, so lots of people responding. Looks like about a little under half 3-star. Oh, 4 stars raising. I'll wait just another minute. All right, it says 94% voted. So I'll let you see those results. It looks like a third 3-star. It's pretty evenly balanced, I would say. Mm-hmm. A number of you not yet rated or not participating, or it doesn't apply. 17% 2-star and 20% 4-star. So no 5-star. Oh, a few 5 stars too. So we've got a little of everything. All right, the next question I have for you is, tell us your level of experience with the SACERS, the School Age Care Environment Rating Scale. So you have no experience, maybe just a little, you feel somewhat experienced, or an expert. %. Again, it's pretty balanced. Nobody identifies as an expert. That's okay. All right, so let me close that so that you can see it. Looks like 23%, I have none. That's why I'm here. 17% only a little, 37% somewhat, and 23% experience. So that's a wide range. And then I've got one more question for you. And that is, tell us your professional role. So are you in family child care? Are you a teacher in a program or an administrator in a school age program? Maybe your agency staff. And if you select other, type in what that means, if you wouldn't mind. So again, really evenly balanced, more or less. All right. Hopefully that was enough time. So 23% family child care, 27% teacher, 23% administrator, 20% agency staff. I imagine those are technical consultants. 7% other. Somebody typed in she's a director as well as a teacher. All right, so I am now going to, I will now turn it over to Tiffany. If that works.
Okay. So the SACERS-U. If you're familiar with the other scales, this follows the same guidelines. It's a 7-point scale. It's just one of the ERS family of tools. It's designed to assess group care programs for children of school age between ages 5 and 12. You can use it for family. The family tool is a little bit more tailored to that circumstance, but you're welcome if you're using it for professional development and have all school agers. You can use this tool as well. And when developing the SACERS, the authors drew from research, developmentally appropriate practices, and just looked at different qualities that a school age program should have. And just remember, this is just a small training on the SACERS-U. You really need to read the tool, experience the tool to truly understand it. So there are 49 items that this tool measures, divided into 7 subcategories. There's space for furnishings, health and safety, activities, interactions, program structure, staff development, which is not scored for Youngstar, and special needs. We are going to be touching on all of these except for the special needs one, just because that one is so individualized to the program. The one thing to remember is this is not scored when we use it as formal raters unless the person with special needs is actually in the program while we're observing. So it's a 7-point scale ranging from 1 to 7, 1 meaning inadequate, 7 meaning excellent. So there are some frequently used terms throughout the scale. Some means there are 2 or more materials or items available for the children. Many means there should be 3 to 5 materials or items available, and programs must have at least 3 with 2 for each age group. So the age groups are defined as kindergarten through 3rd grade, and then 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. Varied just means that you should have different types. So programs must have at least 2 types of items from each age group. The numbers of items must be enough quantity that they can use them without having some kind of conflict or having to wait long periods of time. So an example in music and movement, there has to be 2 of the 3 categories needed. So there has to be cassettes, whoever uses those anymore, I don't know, CDs, dance props, and some musical instruments. So music to listen to, dance props, and musical instruments, you have to have 2 of those 3 categories in order to get the varied. Available means that the materials are present in the environment, and then accessible means that the children can freely access the materials, and they should be allowed to use the materials whenever they want to, unless they're engaged in some kind of structured activity. So Rachel is going to talk a little bit about space and furnishings.
Okay, excuse me. So what kind of space do you have to meet the needs of the children and your staff? So some of the things that you want to look for is with indoor space, how much space do you have? Is it clean, in good repair? Is there natural light? You want to make sure that there's space for gross motor activities and ample space for different activities where it's located. You want to have space for privacy. And what that means is that 1 to 3 children could be in a space that's for privacy, but that they could still be easily supervised. So you don't want them behind a closed door. You want them in maybe a quiet area, a reading nook, something like that. Room arrangement, you want to have activity areas set up and defined, and you do not overcrowd the room. You want to have excessive access to the host facility. So if you share a space, if you're in a school, you want to know what are some of the difficulties you're going to have with sharing a space. Are you able to bring materials into that classroom? Do you have to set up in a gym? Those types of things. You want to have space to meet personal and professional needs for your staff. Is there an office that you can use where you can meet with parents or make phone calls? Is there a bathroom, a lounge, storage, office space, space for conferences? When looking at your actual space and furnishings, you want to remember you want to have child-sized tables and chairs. So if you're using an elementary school gym and you're using the cafeteria tables, you have to remember that for younger children, that's not going to meet the criteria because you want their feet to touch the ground and the table to be at belly height. You want to have individual storage for children. Personal items should not touch each other. You want to have a soft, cozy area, which includes soft furnishings, carpets, rugs, pillows, those types of things. And you want to make sure you have a variety of portable and stationary gross motor equipment that the 5 skills can be in. And you want to remember, don't stress over things you can't change. When sharing space, there's a lot of things that you can't control. So you want to make sure that you don't stress out over the things that you can't change and improve the things that you can. Tiffany?
So a little bit about health and safety. Most of these indicators under health and safety assess policies that are already in place. Many of these policies are kind of set up by licensing, and it's going to be hard to change unless you're a director or something like that. For health practices and policies, think about what you're doing with the sick children. Are you secluding them? Are you making sure that staff take proper health precautions, washing hands, things like that? There was a change in the SACERS-U for physicals and TB, so this is just following state licensing now, which I know will make a lot of programs very happy. It is no longer every 2 years, it's just upon hire. For safety practices and policies, look for hazards in your space. Find a good safety checklist that can be completed at least weekly, and make sure staff are looking for safety and different hazards in their space all the time, because that's going to affect that score. For safety practices and policies, make sure you're also doing fire drills. Those have to be done at least monthly. I know a lot of group programs, they might get scored down a little bit for this because they're not doing them with the school-aged children. So make sure school-aged children are also participating in the monthly fire drills. Attendance and departure, this is usually one of the higher scoring. Basically, you have to take attendance and have some kind of system in place for making sure children are greeted properly and make sure departure goes smoothly. For meals and snacks, make sure to feed the children every 3 hours. Follow the USDA food requirements and clean those tables using the 2-step procedure. Soap and water first, separate rags on each table, and then your sanitizing solution following the directions on the package and drying it with a separate towel that was not used on your soap and water drying. Personal hygiene, this one is always very tricky because children, no matter how often you teach them the proper procedure, they still find ways to sneak around it. So, proper procedure, wet hands, apply the soap, 20 seconds outside the water, scrubbing, rinsing, turning off the faucet with a paper towel, and then throwing it away. So it's a very long procedure. That 20 seconds takes forever. And you don't always have the proper supervision to ensure that they're following the practices. Also making sure the bathrooms are clean and having tissues available. The scale is very specific that it has to be tissues. You can't use toilet paper as a means to blow your nose. And before you make any changes to your policies, contact your licensor. Does anyone have any questions on what we've talked about so far?
So we'll wait just a minute to see if people type stuff in. It takes a few minutes. I wanted to say my 14-year-old is still challenged by hand washing procedures. They're vacuuming in our hallway. I don't know if you guys can hear that. All right, well, it doesn't look like there are any questions right now.
So we'll go ahead and start talking about the activity areas. This is one of the main parts of the SACERS-U. Takes up quite a big chunk. So the activities are broken up into different subcategories. We have arts and crafts. So for arts and crafts, make sure you have a variety of art materials. You must include one type from 3 categories. So the categories include drawing, 3-dimensional, arts and crafts, things like that. Drawing is one of the main ones. Painting. In the book, you can look at, I'm just going to, page 26, and it gives some great ideas on different materials that might be included in each of the categories. So for drawing, there's felt pens, crayons, pencils. For painting, there's tempera paints and watercolors. Collage material, that's just about anything you can possibly glue onto a piece of paper. Sculpture, 3-dimensional, is the clay, the Play-Doh, wood that you can put together, paper boxes for construction, and then crafts are the kinds of craftsy things that a lot of children at this age like. So origami, some jewelry making. I know those little rubber band bracelet type things are really popular. And then provide opportunities for children to learn new skills. So make sure that you're incorporating those opportunities at least 4 times a year. So that could be introducing pottery or teaching them how to do origami, things like that. And then having some projects that require several days to complete, offered at least monthly. So maybe that's doing some kind of clay where you make the clay and then sculpt it and then it dries and then you paint it. The next category is music and movement. Making sure to have a variety of instruments, music, dance, things like that, available for at least 30 minutes daily. So this is a change that they actually have a time frame to pay attention to, and that's 30 minutes no matter how long your program is open for. And then offer some kind of musical activities at least weekly. So this is some kind of a musical structured activity. So blocks and construction, and when we're going through this, you see that some of the stuff is highlighted in red. The reason I did that is because the things in red have changed with the new updated version. So this is just so that you kind of draw your attention to the changes. If you're familiar with the scale, these are things that have been updated. So blocks and construction, so you need both of them now. You should have a variety of blocks and interlocking construction materials. provide the appropriate space, so make sure that it's not in a walkway and they have enough room to build substantial structures. And then allow children to use tools and soft wood for construction projects. The thing to remember about that one is it is up in the 7 level, so that means excellent, and a lot of people kind of shy away from this because giving school-age children hammer and nails and things like that scare a lot of people. We're not talking about power tools here. We're talking about soft wood, nails, hammer, screws, screwdrivers, things like that. I would not recommend giving power tools to school-age children. Drama and theater. Make sure to have a variety of drama and theater props for both boys and girls. So don't just have all dressy, girly type of things. Make sure to have both boy and girl materials. And staff has to be observed extending dramatic play. So this is offering them suggestions. If they're playing with something, say, hey, why don't we go do this? Or here's some space, or here's some materials to enhance your dramatic play. And then also offering the opportunity for theater productions. So this is putting on plays, skits, things like that. Language and reading is the next. So making sure to have a variety of books and language games. Make sure that they are all age appropriate. So a lot of times programs are scored a little bit down because they have fighting, superheroes, just some kind of like comic booky type of books in their area. And I know that these are very popular with the boys especially, but those are types of things that we like to see at home and not necessarily in a child care center where it might not be appropriate for all the children that are there. I myself have a son who is very sensitive to any type of frightening images or anything that is remotely scary. So not all children can handle those types of things as well as others. And then make sure to encourage children to use reading and writing. This is something that during an observation has to be observed. So helping them read directions to a game or writing a letter to a friend or home. Helping with homework doesn't count in those kinds of instances because this is more about real life circumstances. And then play language games. So rhyming games, maybe a game of horse while you're playing basketball. Playing language games is also something that needs to be observed, and it's rather important that we see it at least once because as we talked about before, there's a 1 to 7 type of scale, and this falls down into the 3 level. So if we don't see those types of things happening, then you can't get a score above a 3. Math and reasoning. Having a variety of games and activities, so at least 3 to 5 types of games and activities for each age group. So math and reasoning games, these are your board games, they're card games, things like that, that encourage that reasoning skill. And then encourage children to use math and reasoning skills. So this is also something that has to be observed. In the lower levels, it can be observed with homework help, but as you get higher in the scale, they have to be observed at least twice with everyday type of daily events. So this is helping set the table, it's helping measure and cut craft materials, or helping keep score in a game. things like that that help encourage children to use those math skills that we all know are so important. The next area is science and nature. So make sure you have a variety of science and nature types of materials and equipment. So the "and" is highlighted because you need both. You need the materials and the equipment. So think of magnifying glasses, think of microscopes, things like that for science materials. Plan activities at least weekly. So these are your science experiments. It's, maybe having a garden, having a class pet that they have to take care of, and then use books to encourage children to think about and find answers to nature and science questions. This has been moved and kind of changed a little bit, that this is something that we have to observe now. So we have to see those books in that science area and have to see it with the materials. And then cultural awareness, having a variety of materials that reflect diversity. So there has to be at least 4 different materials that reflect diversity. This could be in books, it could be in posters, it could be in games, dramatic play materials. So there are a large variety of ways to meet this. And then having non-sexist images in the environment. I know this sounds kind of old school, but it's the girls playing basketball type of things, fathers reading to the children or cooking. I don't make it up. I just go with what the authors say. So I know it sounds old school, but those are things that are important to have in your environment. So those could be in books or in posters. Yes?
So there's a question here. I'm not sure the difference between what is considered science equipment versus material.
Okay, so science equipment and materials. If you have the book, the updated version, if you go to page 32, it does talk about it in the notes for clarification. So for equipment, it says things like aquariums, measuring tools, magnifying glasses, magnets, scales, microscopes. And then for materials, some examples include natural objects, such as shells or rocks or leaves, living things such as plants or pets, realistic books, posters, pictures, and different nature science games. So think of like a nature matching game or something like that, that just shows realistic plants and animals that they would be able to see it but not necessarily do something with. So that's the basic difference between materials and equipment.
So there's another question. How do you define diversity? Do you only mean racial diversity, or do they include other things for diversity? And I guess they, Karen, you mean the rater that's doing the observation, or maybe we mean the environment rating scale itself. But do they include other things for diversity, religion, non-traditional roles, etc.?
So it depends on where in the scale. On the 3 level, it's some ethnical, gender role, cultural, racial variety of type of diversity. At the 5 level, it is differences of diversity other than gender. So it's basically all those things, the race, the linguistics. So if you have stuff in English and in Spanish, that would count. Culture, abilities. So all those things do count towards it. The only thing that doesn't count at that 5 level is the non-sexist images, because it's counted on a different different indicator. So it's counted at 5.2 for the non-sexist images. So that's why it doesn't count at 5.1. So I hope that answered your questions.
And so how do you recommend a center have all these required items when they're sharing the space with the school and have very limited storage?
So that is actually the next thing that we are going to be talking about. So we will get everybody's input onto that in just a second. So what do you do to maximize your space? So at this point, we would like to get your input because you are the people that are in the trenches, you live this, and you are the ones that set up your spaces and are the experts, really. So let's get some feedback on what you do to maximize your space.
And you can type that into the question box or the chat box.
So we'll give you a few minutes. Sure. And we're just going to take a 5-minute break. If you need to go potty, get a drink, things like that, stretch your legs, just because this is a longer webinar, and then it'll give us a chance to get all the questions put in and hopefully be able to relay those back to you.
So it's 1:04, so we'll be back at 1:09. Okay, we're back. It's 1:09. We've got a staff person here who's watching from her office, and she's not able to get the visual. She can hear us, and so I wanted to check in and make sure that you all are seeing the PowerPoint. So if you can see the what do you do to maximize your space, if you could just raise your hand, I'd appreciate it. It'll make me feel better. Okay, so it looks like, I think it's her browser, actually. Just so you know, Firefox tends to work better than Internet Explorer. All right, thank you. So I'll just ask, there's a couple questions here, or a couple of responses. So Darcy says she organizes the room into centers to maximize space. Ellen says, I learned to divide the room into sections by way of sight and count of children. And as the owner, Karen says, I ended up buying storage sheds. So one is on site and the other is at my house to store items. Rotate equipment and materials, Karen says. Lisa says, to maximize your space, you can use pictures and music. When it's time to go outside, you can do a lot of your activities then. Ellen says, I have my space in areas with enough space for 4 children to be in a center for a certain time. Then I have the children clean up and move to a different area to explore. Nicole says, we use bins, rolling carts, crates that are labeled and contain the materials to meet in scale. I see it. Thank you, Nicole. Okay.
Okay. So that's just some of the ideas that you guys have utilized. So to maximize your space, you really just have to make do with what you have. Rolling carts is what I usually see in programs, because a lot of programs are in schools and they don't have their own space. So they use carts and different rolling carts or rolling shelves, things that are mobile that can be easily moved around. And I know that a lot of you are probably sharing space just because school-age programs, that's kind of what we do. We go to the children a lot. So the children are in schools and we use the space that we can to get the enrollment that we need. Besides rolling carts and things like that, there's not really a whole lot more that I've seen to utilize the space. Also bringing in some of those rugs. I guess I've seen rugs to kind of make those spaces their own space. It defines the area and adds some softness, especially if you're in like a cafeteria and it's all hard. So adding rugs to find the space and add different interest areas definitely does make a difference to the children. Wonderful. So interactions is the next big thing that we're going to be talking about. This is all about how the staff interact with children. And by staff, it is the people that are with the children most of the time. Sometimes during an observation, what we see is supervisors or things like that come in and they have the most wonderful language and great interactions, but unfortunately we cannot count any of that during the observation to meet these indicators because it has to be the staff that is normally in the room all the time. So it has to be those teachers. The only thing to remember with that is if there's any negative interactions, let's say there's a volunteer, student teacher, something like that, and there's some negative interactions, those do get counted on all of these interaction scores. So the first thing is greeting and departing. Make sure you have a plan for organized greeting and departing. So sometimes I'll see like necklaces, the children give their teacher a name tag or a necklace when they come in saying, hey, I'm here, and it gives the teacher a chance to greet the child and make sure that they have everybody that they're supposed to have. And then when they leave, they give back the keychain or necklace. Magnetic boards or Velcro boards with their names on are also a way. Sign-in sheets, that way they practice writing also. So those are some of the things that I've seen as far as planning organized greeting and departing. Just make sure that during departure time that you're recognizing the parents and that you kind of get that one-on-one little bit of a talk with them. If it not verbally, at least some kind of eye contact, a wave, things like that, so that when someone is observing, they know that you recognize that that child is leaving. And then sharing information with parents, making sure that they know what happened during the day. If there was a bump or a bruise or some kind of incident, making sure to share that information as well. One of the big things that we see is younger children not escorted to the center. This one is one of those things that, depending on how your program is set up, you might not have control over, but just be aware that it will score lower.
So just a question clarifying. Steve says, why can you count the negative and not the positive interactions?
Because any negative interaction is counted no matter who does it. It's just the way that the scale is written. Positive interactions, it has to be the normal teachers that are in the room. It's just the way the scale is written. So for staff-child interactions, making sure that children are responded to in a warm, supportive manner. And I know that everybody on here, you're taking the time to be on this webinar, so I know you have those warm, supportive relationships with the children, so you will do wonderful in this area. And make sure to allow the children to take the lead. So having them take the lead in different games, doing like Simon Says, and things like that. And then for staff-child interactions, it's about mutual respect. This is more about treating children fairly, not discriminating. Lots of pleases, thank yous, manners types of things. Staff-child communication, having frequent conversations with the children, asking some of those open-ended questions. So for open-ended questions, that's the whys, the hows, the what ifs. So why did you decide to paint that picture the way you did? How are you going to make the tower so it doesn't fall over next time? Things like that to kind of get them to explain or to get them to have some longer conversations, more complex answers. And then making sure that the staff talk to each child. So we don't need to actually see each child have a conversation with staff, but it has to be something that the staff is taking the initiative, that no child is really left out. And then staff supervision of children, making sure that there's careful supervision. So that means that children under the age of 8 are not going to the bathroom on their own, things like that. And then children are given help and encouragement when needed. They're shown how to use materials. Staff show appreciation for children's efforts and accomplishments. So that's where, oh wow, you did it, you tied your shoes by yourself. We've been working on that for the last 3 weeks. And then staff talk to children about ideas related to their play and help elaborate and extend activities. So talking about the building or the art project that they're doing. giving them different things to enhance their play. If they're playing with Legos and they're talking about people, different people, maybe adding those extra people to the Legos or to the building. And then staff are available to coach team sports and help with activities. This one is one that often confuses people. So this requires that someone on staff that's knowledgeable of a certain activity or team sport is available to guide them and instruct their skills. So someone that knows about soccer, maybe has played soccer, can kind of coach them in a game of soccer. So this is more than just watching them play soccer or watching them play basketball. It's talking about the rules of the game and things like that, where it's sharing your knowledge of that sport or that activity. So they say that activity could be like pottery or carpentry. Maybe if you are a master sewer and you're teaching your children to sew, that could be something that you could share with them. Discipline. So this is about your discipline policy. And I know some of the stuff in here is licensing. Do you have some kind of a policy that's given to parents about harsh discipline? And what this means is no spanking, no hitting, no corporal punishment. And then making sure that your behavior modifications or your discipline is non-punitive and works. So sometimes you have some children that are rather difficult, and we've all been there. So this is about finding the right discipline strategies for that child. Think about a well-oiled type of classroom that runs smoothly. This is something that we should see in a classroom where discipline methods are used effectively. Lots of attention for positive behavior. And then the program is set up to avoid conflict, making sure that areas are not crowded, that children are not waiting too long for activities, making sure that if you have group times that they're appropriate for the children and that they are interested in them. And then for the higher end of the scale, it talks about staff seek advice from a consultant concerning behavior problems. So making sure that staff know, or the teachers know, who they can turn to if there's a problem. So that would be school personnel, psychologists, things like that that you may turn to if you have some kind of problem behavior. And then behavior problems are discussed with parents, which I'm sure if there's any type of problem that you're talking to the parents. Yeah?
Here's a very relevant question. So what if you have siblings that get away with fighting at home and they bring it to the classroom, although the parents have been talked to? Any advice?
Oh, siblings are always challenging. Just try and get them to, trying to get them to play nicely, but maybe something like that, get them to play separately for a little bit if you're having some issues. Getting them involved in something that kind of takes them off of that fighting and bickering. I know siblings are always fun, but that's kind of a as needed situational type of basis. That's kind of hard to coach just spot on. Peer interactions, this is all about how the children interact with each other, making sure that they have the chance to interact, so giving them lots of opportunities for that social play, for being able to have the free choice and freely pick their companions. And then how are the children demonstrating their problem-solving skills? Are they sharing? Are they talking with each other? Are you helping solve their problems, or are you giving them solutions? So make sure that you're helping incorporate that peer interaction and kind of serving as a sounding board, helping them problem solve. Not necessarily giving them solutions, but talking through the solutions with them. Interactions between staff and parents. This one is slightly different than the previous scale, just that parent conferences, it used to be required that they happen twice a year at the 5 level, and that has been bumped up to the 7 level, which will make a lot of people happy because I know school-age conferences are one of those things that are very difficult to get the parents involved with. And then about parents being welcomed as part of the program, helping children and parents share their customs. Maybe parents or families will talk about different interests or skills with the group of children. And then how is information being shared with the parents? Do you have newsletters? Do you have a handbook? Do you have parent meetings? Maybe you have an advisory committee. Maybe some kind of a yearly evaluation. For staff interactions, this only has to be scored if there are more than one staff that work with the same group of children. So this is something, if more than one staff work with the same group of children, that they share information regularly, maybe some kind of a planning. At the 7 level, there should be at least bi-weekly planning with the staff that work with the same group of children. Otherwise, just time set aside that they can talk about what's going on with the day, any type of interactions that are problemsome, or anything that might be changed in the environment. And then making sure that the responsibilities are divided evenly. And this is kind of subjective, I know. But it's more about the feelings. And a lot of this is questions that will happen after the observation. So it's all based on how the teachers respond to the different questions. And then program promotes positive interactions. Do you have different social events or outings or group professional meetings that staff could attend together? Relationship between program staff and classroom staff. This is also something that can be marked NA if they're not inside the school. So they actually have to, the program has to be located inside the classroom or inside the school that the children go to. So how is information shared between the school staff and the program staff? Is there meetings? Do they talk about different activities that they're doing? Do they talk about social emotional issues with children? Is there any type of conversations going on between the classroom staff and the program staff? And I know this one is also really hard for programs to score higher on because it takes the cooperation of not only the program staff, but the actual school classroom staff as well. And sometimes no matter how hard you try, you just can't get that relationship built. So for program structure, the big thing to remember is that you need a schedule. And the schedule has to be written down, and it has to have times, and it has to relate to what is going on in the classroom. So make sure that all those components are met. There is a change with this scale around at least one fine motor or language activity is scheduled daily. So making sure that there's some proof of fine motor or language activities occurring every day. So it could be in your schedule, it could be in lesson plans, things like that. Other things that need to be scheduled are gross motor activities, and then a variety of activities. So some kind of spontaneous activities as well as planned. And then, of course, in childcare, we need flexibility, making sure that we can bend a little bit. If the weather's nice, you know, that first 50-degree day out that's coming up, that you want to spend most of your time outside, that you're able to do that. And then smooth transitions, being able to move from one activity to the next rather quickly. So smaller transitions with less children. And then field trips and special activities scheduled. So for that, making sure that if you are able to do field trips, usually this only happens in the summer, but maybe you might have a special guest come, maybe you bring someone in. I know sometimes people bring like the firefighter in to show their equipment and talk about fire safety. So that's a special activity that would count towards this. Free choice is also under program structure. So making sure that most of the time the children can choose from a wide variety of age-appropriate games, materials, and activities. So what do they have accessible to them? And can they choose who they're playing with for at least 50% of the time that they're there? And then opportunities for individual, small group, and large group activities. So you need to have a variety of different groupings that the children can participate in. Making sure that materials are changed up at least monthly. So someone talked about rotating materials. That's definitely something that should be done at least monthly or more often if needed. It helps with the lack of space. So you don't have everything out at once. It helps with interest, making sure that they're interested in the things. If you change it up, it's new, exciting. And then children are encouraged to develop and extend activities that are of interest to them. So taking the child's lead and incorporating things that they like to do. And then for free choice, also make sure that the children are free to decide not to participate in an activity. So let's say you have a group game go on and one of the children just really isn't feeling it. Giving them the option to do something else or play alone, just not forcing them to participate. The use of community resources is not scored for this. And then administrative relationships between program staff and program host actually was taken out. So that is not part of the new scale. Staff development, this whole section is also taken out. So do we have any questions so far? I know it's a lot of me talking.
While we're waiting, Ellen, you asked about siblings fighting. I did want to direct you to, we've got some school-age guidance trainings and school-age curricular framework trainings on our training page. And so WICA is hosting those, and those are coming up this spring. Those are both great trainings if you're working with school-age children. Those are in the Milwaukee area, and so if you're not in the Milwaukee area, your local CCR&R is most likely also offering those trainings. So did you state that item 38 is not scored and item 39 is not scored?
Correct. 38 and 39 is not scored for the purposes of Young Star. So a formal rater will not score that.
And Ellen, who had the sibling question, says she has 5 siblings in her classroom from 3 to 9.
Ooh. So. That would be hard to separate them.
You're welcome, Nicole. Well, it doesn't look like there's any questions right now. So.
Harvey, the show them. Please, so you get the information. It's not.
I think it'll be fine.
Okay.
Are those embedded?
Yeah. So some additional resources that you may want to look into. Of course, there are those Wisconsin interpretations, just because some things in the scale don't quite jive with what Wisconsin would like. So there are Wisconsin interpretations that are found on the Young Star website, and we will take you to that now. Yes, it is trustworthy.
Hang on, it's coming up on my other screen. Oh, look at that. Is that where we're supposed to be?
No, that's the one over. No, right there. You see that tab? That tab. So as you can see, the Wisconsin interpretations were just updated as of January 8th, 2016. And the reason we're talking about this is because the SACERS-U has been around for a little bit, but the beginning of 2016 is when we officially started using the SACERS-U. And as you see, if you scroll down a little bit, it talks about the terms that we already talked about. Talks about minimum indoor temperature, which is sometimes important, making sure that it's at least 67 degrees.
You want me to go all the way?
Yeah.
I need a mouse.
Well, maybe not.
Yeah. So I uploaded some of these handouts directly to the webinar. So actually you participants should be able to click on those and open them, but I will also put these links in the follow-up email for everybody.
Okay. And then we'll go to Caring for Our Children. Caring for Our Children is a very large, great resource that I technically never use the book for. I always go to the website because it's so much easier to maneuver. So if you click on that link, it usually does take a little bit because it's like 500 pages long. What's great about this is it's PDF, so it is searchable. All you have to do if you're searching for something is to hit Control F and type in whatever it is you're searching for, and it will bring up everything that has to do with that subject.
Looks like it's too big for us right now.
Okay, it's too big. But definitely take a look at that, and it's very nice because it'll show you the rationale behind. No, we don't. No.
No, I don't want that.
Oh, no. I might have crashed our webinar.
And so the handbook?
Yes. The handbook is very nice because it gives you the rationale, or the Caring for Our Children, it gives you the rationale behind why things should be the way they are. So if you have any parents or staff that are questioning why things should happen the way they are, then you can kind of give them this information. So this is Caring for Our Children. We won't download it right now because I'm afraid it's going to crash. But it gives you information, everything from safe sleep for infants to hand washing to spacing of cots to food prep, anything health related, basically. And then the playground safety is the next link. And this is also a PDF that you just can search through. This is everything to do and anything you might possibly want to know about your playground and how it is or is not safe. Lots of very detailed information. This is best used before you set up your playground to know what you're looking for. I'm actually going to be building my husband's going to be building a swing set for our 2 young children. And I'm going through this and he's laughing at me because I'm like, it needs to be this wide and we need to have this much cushioning and the spacing needs to be XYZ. So when you're setting up a playground, this is the best resource.
It's still thinking, so people can look at that on their own.
Okay. And I can't click. Okay. And then hopefully everybody is familiar with the Youngstar website. This has a abundance of information. You can spend hours and hours looking through this and getting lots and lots of great resources, ideas, helpful tips. So definitely take a look at the Youngstar website for additional help with either the ERS or any of your other Youngstar needs. There are some great tip sheets for the SACERS or any of the other environmental rating scales. We did not create them, but they are here for your reference. And it's not moving. Okay. And I think we'll finish up a little bit early, but I definitely want to be able to answer any questions because we do have some time. If you have additional questions that I might be able to answer, I would be more than happy to. Here are our email addresses. Mine's the first one, tswain@wisconsinearlychildhood.org. Feel free to ask any questions you might have related to the school age environmental rating scale. And then this is Rachel's email address. And Rachel is actually a consultant with WICA also. So if you have some consulting type questions that you might want to ask her, she would be happy to answer them, wouldn't you, Rachel?
Yes, I will.
All right, so please feel free if you've got other questions to type them in right now. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Rachel. I'm going to go ahead and show the registry information right now, but we will stay here for a few more minutes at least to see if anybody has any lingering questions. So right now I'm taking the link to the survey and I'm putting it in the chat box and sending it to everybody. And so this works for some people and doesn't work for others in my experience. And so you should be able to click on that link and it should take you right to the SurveyMonkey. If it doesn't, there's a couple other ways that we can do this.